So my name is Megan and I'm a qualifying psychotherapist registered with the CRPO, and I wanted to talk about something that's becoming more and more common in the therapeutic space, which is climate-related anxiety. So climate change is real and there's no denying it. The science is really clear and every day we see the evidence, whether it's extreme weather events, wildfires, flooding, or the steady loss of our ecosystems. And with the 24/7 access to news and social media, we're constantly being flooded with information about these crises. So it can start to feel like we can't escape it. If you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious about the state of the planet, I want you to know that you're not alone. Research shows that climate anxiety or eco anxiety is affecting a significant number of people. In fact, a 2023 report revealed that 3 out of 4 Canadians say that climate change impacts their mental health and contributes to their anxiety. So that stat really speaks to how much this issue is affecting us collectively. Those of us who struggle with anxiety or have a need to feel in control of our lives, the constant bombardment of environmental concerns can really exacerbate the feelings of helplessness. And when we feel helpless, it can add an entirely new layer to our anxiety. So it's important to know, though, that anxiety is not inherently bad. It's actually a natural adaptive process that's our body's way of alerting us to any potential hazards. So the problem comes when anxiety becomes excessive or when we start to feel paralyzed by it. And you might find yourself stuck in this loop of worrying, being unable to stop thinking about the future, what's going to happen to the planet, to your kids, to your community. And in some ways, this can even lead to what's been described as climate doom, which is the sense that there's nothing we can really do about it, so why even try?
Hi, I'm Michelle Rabbetts. I'm the Climate and Environmental Coordinator at Lanark County.
Hello, I'm Lalit. I'm the Environmental Clerk Assistant, Lanark County.
And I am Elizabeth Gallant, and I am also the Climate Environmental Coordinator for Lanark County. And just to kind of set some definitions for today, climate change really refers to a long-term change in weather conditions over a certain area. So with climate change, we can expect to see a change in the frequency, duration, and intensity of, say, extreme weather events like heat waves, droughts, floods, winter storms. So specifically in Lanark County, this might look like a change in the length and duration of heat waves in the summer. It might lead to more droughts in the summer, a decrease in the number of really cold days in the winter. It's quite a broad range of impacts like in weather over time. So we can expect that this is going to change quite a lot of aspects of life in Lanark County. So for instance, if you think about increased heat waves and droughts, this is going to have a significant impact on agricultural systems and food security. So it might be more difficult for our local farmers to produce food. If you think about extreme storms, so whether that's floods or winter storms, wind storms, this is going to have really large impacts on our infrastructure. So things like roads, our water drainage systems, buildings. So that's going to impact a lot of different service areas in the community. And then one other aspect is our natural biodiversity. So this is going to change over time as weather conditions change, which might lead to more things like invasive species or pests. So that's generally a broad description of the changes we can expect to see in Lanark County.
There are many noticeable changes in our local environment due to climate change. You may have noticed over the years the varying temperature changes that are oftentimes unpredictable, to some harsh winters, but then other years not so harsh, and summers that are just incredibly hot. And this has caused species to decline and some extinctions, and just because these conditions have become uninhabitable for them. And like going off the subject of pollinators, we've noticed a huge decline in pollinators, and this is scary because pollinators support our world, and without them, we wouldn't have food. If we don't start taking action now, then these changes that we're noticing could become irreversible, which is terrifying.
Having grown up and living in Lanark County, we've been seeing changes that we aren't really used to. Storms that I've never seen in Lanark County having grown up here, like the recent derecho, tornadoes, just things that maybe occurred further apart are happening more frequently. Here at Lanark County, we actually adopted the first ever climate action plan in 2023. And this plan is intended to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as well as mitigate climate change in not only our organization, but also the community as a whole. So in the plan, we have 29 corporate goals and 21 community goals, so actions that we've committed to taking over the next few decades, honestly. We're really trying to find a holistic approach to climate change by targeting a wide range of areas. So reducing emissions in buildings, being more strategic with the way we plan our communities, planning for more effective transportation, waste management. So really a wide range of goals are within our climate action plan.
There are a few upcoming major programs, projects in certain themes that people can keep an eye out for. The first one is in buildings. We talk a lot about greenhouse gas emissions, and part of our goals are to reduce overall emissions in our building sector within the community and corporate. And so we are taking actions to bring forward programs that can both help reduce emissions by retrofitting existing buildings. So we are doing things like managing our natural features. Right now we're in the process of trying to develop a natural heritage system for Lanark County. We also have some more on-the-ground type programs, including our Alice Lanark program that's most recently been expanded to be Alice Mississippi Rito. We're really excited about that program that allows us to build nature-based climate solutions on marginal farmland, working with farmers. It's a farmer-led, farmer-driven program that the county is supporting. And we're also looking towards climate adaptation, which is a key component of how to address climate change. And we're really referring to a climate mitigation plan, so what we can do to be prepared for when those things inevitably do happen.
Hi, my name is Robin Boynton. I am the owner of EcoBoo, which is a eco-friendly vintage boutique here in Perth, Ontario. I was inspired to open my own store because I have this passion about shopping secondhand, vintage, and I've had this since I was in public school. I always loved unique items that you can find secondhand, and I find that vintage items have much more character than anything that you can find in a mall. Sustainability is a huge part of my business model. EcoBoo stands for Eco-Friendly Vintage Boutique. Everything in here is secondhand, from the clothing to the price tags to the shopping bags. All the vintage items are locally sourced to help reduce carbon footprint. Much care is taken to make repairs and even do creative mending to ensure the garments get to live on and on. Shopping secondhand and vintage reduces the amount of items sent to landfills, and shopping locally also reduces your carbon footprint. Items bought online from places like Temu just end up going straight to the thrift stores due to their poor quality. And when they're not sold there, they're sent to a landfill or overseas to other countries to deal with the problem.
In high school, I was involved in many climate initiatives. I started with Climate Network Lanark and their Youth Climate Action Group, where we discussed climate change and projects that we can implement into our communities. And then from that group, it led me to the David Suzuki Foundation's Butterfly Way project, which is a movement across Canada that focuses on establishing pollinator gardens that have native plants to support our local pollinators. And so I've been working on that project ever since grade 9, and we've established many pollinator gardens across Lanark County. And then another project I was involved in was the Youth Climate Circle, which was a group that I helped develop with some local youth and a climate change author. And it started as a discussion group where we talked about climate grief and climate anxiety and projects that we were working on. And then we kind of expanded it to this, to create this workshop that we brought to elementary schools, and we work with students on ways that they can take action within their community. And we also talked to them about how climate grief and climate anxiety is totally normal, and it's totally normal to feel overwhelmed. And we help them develop strategies in which they can cope with their emotions and also kind of channel those emotions into positive change.
Hi, I'm Madison, and I'm the owner of Coastal here in Carlton Place. Coastal is a consignment store, so primarily we sell secondhand clothing and accessories and home decor. So when I first opened Coastal, I wanted a place that was sustainable, environmentally friendly, and where people could shop secondhand goods. And I think it's very important to keep as much clothing out of the landfill as possible, and for people to learn that they can find things secondhand that are just as good as going to a mall.
While it's natural to feel concerned about the future, it's also really important to find ways to cope with the anxiety so it doesn't take over. And as a therapist, I work with people who are struggling with this very thing alongside their general anxiety. And so we use different techniques to help manage anxiety, climate anxiety. One thing that I really focus on in therapy is helping clients identify what is and isn't in their circle of control. So we know that we can't stop global warming overnight, but we can actively make decisions that help to reduce our personal impact. So from the products that we buy, how we're using our resources, how we advocate for policy changes, these are all actions that help us feel empowered in the face of a challenge that's bigger than any one of us.
Sustainability is important to me, and there are many eco-friendly habits which I have adopted. Some of them are, I have minimized my use of single-use plastic bottles, straws. I tend to bike, I tend to walk when I can do so. I don't use my car. If I need to go for some groceries, I do that. And I also do recycling and composting at home, which helps me in saving waste. I also turn off lights, even if I'm at home or at workplace when they are not in use. I tend to do meal prepping and eat leftover food just to so that I don't have food waste.
There are lots of eco-friendly practices that I try to adopt into my daily life. I recently moved to Montreal for school, so I live in a big city, so it's a big change for me now, but I walk everywhere to classes and everything, and if I need transportation, I always take public transportation. Montreal also has like this big biking system that a lot of people bike. It's really cool. And then I also only use reusable containers, and I try to limit my use of single-use plastics all the time. So like always have my metal water bottle that I reuse, stuff like that. Try to limit my energy consumption, like small little things. And I do believe that if everyone kind of adopts these little things and little adjustments in their daily life, that it can truly make a big difference.
I do experience a lot of anxiety due to climate change. The garment industry is the number 2 cause of pollution on our planet right now. And on a consumer level, the best that we can do is send a message that we're not interested in poorly made fast fashion and choose to buy secondhand or supporting domestically made slow fashion. If you shop secondhand before you buy new, you're also helping to decrease the demand for new items. The best I can do as a small business owner to inspire broader environmental change in the community is try to make conscious efforts and good business practices to set a low carbon footprint. If we start thinking about what responsible capitalism is, we see that it's far better for the environment as well as our community if we start thinking about the environment, about just supporting the local economy. Anyone who wants to start living more sustainably could start by not purchasing things from places like Temu or Shein, and avoid items online from companies known for their poor quality. Shopping secondhand first, especially locally, is the most sustainable thing that you can do. You can find virtually anything secondhand, whether it's online, on places like Facebook Marketplace, the thrift store, a curated vintage shop, other things like clothing and housewares. There are many companies who have started making alternative cleaning and personal hygiene items that are in a concentrated form, meaning they have less water added, which makes them smaller to transport and requires much less plastic in their packaging. Another thing is that I see a lot of these days is people bringing their own reusable bags for fun shopping and not just grocery shopping, which makes me really, really happy. People carry totes rather than smaller purses, or have rolled up like reusable bags to fit inside the purses so that they have something to carry, so that they don't have to use like a new bag when they're out shopping. My vision for a sustainable Lanark County would be to continue supporting local first, to always be looking at a local small business, a local craftsman, artisan, anything like that, before buying things from Amazon, buying things from Temu. It is so much better for our local economy as well as Canada's economy to be making these conscious decisions. So yeah, I think it starts with looking inward and doing our best to support our own before looking outside.
Shopping secondhand is environmentally friendly. It's a good way to keep money circulating in your own community and give things a second chance at love. So the most important thing people can do to be sustainable in their life would be they can bring clothes into the store and we can consign it for them, and then they can use their in-store credit to then make a purchase towards something in the store as well, to just keep the fashion and the clothes circulating, and many people can kind of reuse that same item many times. Other thing people can do is always check secondhand stores first if they're thinking of making a big purchase or purchasing something for a special event. It doesn't hurt to go check out your local consignment or thrift shops prior to going elsewhere, because you might just find what you're looking for.
What I think everyone in the community could do to make a huge difference would be to just adjust something in their daily life. It could be one thing, could be multiple things, it could be a huge thing. Something that you know you can do. Make a goal for yourself. Say that you're only going to use reusable containers and you're going to eliminate single-use plastics to the best of your ability from your lifestyle. Something like that. Or even just talking about environmental issues more. Spreading more awareness. Because if everyone adjusted something, it would make a huge difference, because it all adds up. And change doesn't have to be huge or immediate. It can be small, and because every effort brings us to a more sustainable future.
One of my favorite kind of eco-friendly actions that I take at home is composting. So to reduce the amount of food that ends up in the landfill, me and my partner have a really large compost pile in the backyard that we turn over throughout the year, and then we add to our garden in the spring. So not only does this limit food waste that ends up in the landfill producing methane, it also helps us create a really healthy and lush garden. That's one thing that I think is interesting about climate action, is not only does it have good benefits for the environment, it also has a lot of like great co-benefits. Like with composting, not only does it reduce emissions, but it also produces really healthy, lush food. It makes me really happy to garden and compost and know that I'm doing good in my home and in the environment. So that's one thing I'd like to share, is just the co-benefits of climate action.
Young people, they have the drive to do the systematic change, and some of the advice, because I want to give to young people, will be educate yourself, do some research about policies, climate change, and also do some research on the carbon footprint, and practice eco-friendly habits, just walk or use bike. And I would also say that make sustainable lifestyle choices if we can do so by secondhand clothes, volunteer.
A really easy thing that a lot of people can do is create their own native pollinator habitat garden. And at Lanark County, we do provide native seed for residents that want to do this work on their own property. We have our 1 million trees program that we aim to plant 1 million trees by 2030 in Lanark County. And so we do offer free native tree seedling giveaways so that residents can take trees home and plant them on their own property.
One way for youth to get involved in local climate action is really just to stay informed on what's happening in local government. Or if you want to look at upper levels of government, that's obviously great too. But really what's impacting your local community can be seen, like you can learn about that, whether it's media releases or your local municipality's website. When there's an election, you can read up on your local municipal councillors' platforms, see whose opinions you most feel like you align with. That way you can feel like you're actually involved in the decisions that impact our climate here locally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to add to that, just not be discouraged with the choice of that political representative. Any kind of action towards climate is a good thing. Even the small things do make a big difference over time. So to not get hung up on, political leaders coming in and not having the kind of agendas that you had hoped for, just know that these kinds of initiatives are happening right in your local municipalities, and just to stay informed about what is happening. And I'll also suggest too that in municipal government at a local level like this, that advocacy work from individuals goes a really long way. And all it does take is getting a little bit familiar with the process for municipal government. But once you do understand it, there are ways to advocate to your local government about what you as constituent, as a resident, want to see happening in your community. And I would highly encourage young people to get involved and to find ways that they can speak up even at a local government level.
So one of the organizations that we work with is Climate Network Lanark. And if any youth are interested in learning more about what's going on locally from a non-government organization, Climate Network Lanark is certainly a local organization that you can work with or volunteer with. And they offer a bunch of really great programs that align with our work and interests. So we certainly think that they are a great organization to reach out to if you're looking to get involved in local climate action.
Yeah, and if there are young people who want to get out and help clean up their environment, we do also have Adopt Road programs at Lanark County where community organizations, church groups, and various types of community groups can sign up to adopt a section of road and clean up that section with litter pickups twice a year. And it makes a big difference in the community. It's not something that would be easy to do on a county scale. So we really rely on volunteers helping to clean up that environment.
My vision for a more sustainable and climate conscious community is one where we are prioritizing both the environment and each other. Somewhere where there's lots of green spaces, native pollinator gardens, tree planting projects, food waste reduction initiatives, somewhere where public transportation and walking and biking is the normal, as well as shopping local and ways that to make shopping more sustainable. And like through all of this, all these initiatives, everyone feels connected as they have the collective vision of a sustainable future and feel empowered to take action so that we have a positive future to look forward to. The advice that I would give to young people who are interested in helping to fight climate change is to not be afraid to step up and take action. You never really know how much of an impact your ideas and your voice is going to have until you try. I know for me personally, when I first started out getting involved in climate initiatives, I was very shy. I was very scared. I didn't know what people would think of my ideas. But I gained that confidence, and I'm so glad that I did, because it was honestly one of the best decisions I've made to get involved in these initiatives, because I've grown so much as a person. I've learned so many valuable skills, and I've met so many incredible people, and I do truly feel like I have been making a difference. And even though like I know it's not like on the worldwide scale that the projects that I have been doing, but they've at least been making a difference in my community and a difference to people in my community and inspiring other people, and just that impact, like it's a very good feeling.
That the collective action can drive change, and there are many things which help me to stay hopeful and motivated, when it comes to climate change and environment. People, they are investing more in clean technology. I see people, they are going for hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles, or going for the retrofitting solutions. I also see on social media and local newspapers and newsletters that there are many advertisements about climate change and environment and climate initiatives, which I think really helps people a lot, and it also motivates me that people, they're actually caring about that.
But I also have a lot of hope. And I will admit, it's very hard not to worry about the future when you see all the ecosystem struggling and the extreme weather patterns and all of these impacts that are affecting the world that are just seem to keep getting worse. And I do have a real fear that what we are doing isn't enough and that the actions we are taking aren't quick enough. But at the same time, I do have a lot of hope because it's being talked about a lot more. There's a lot of people getting involved more. There's a real push for change. And so by seeing all these things that are happening around me and how passionate some people are, and just all the positive changes that are occurring, really gives me a lot of hope and helps me feel like there is a positive future for the world.
For people that may be struggling with the mental health aspects of climate change, I would highly recommend that those people maybe take a step back and start looking at the bigger picture, because it's very easy to get lost in the details and get scared by the examples that are really prevalent in our media and what is available online. It is scary to see what people are saying our world could potentially look like. And a lot of the language you hear right now is about greenhouse gas emissions and how that's going to impact our climate in the future, and all of these targets that we need to meet on a global scale. And it's discouraging to see the global community not coming together in the way that I know a lot of people in our generation want to see the community come together in. And I think it comes down to taking a look at what you can do on a local level. And this goes back to this concept of mitigation versus adaptation. If you are looking only in the lens of mitigation, it can feel very overwhelming that there's no hope in the future. We're going to end up in breaking over those scientific targets. But if you look at what we can do, there is so much potential in the things that you can do in your own daily life. It doesn't have to make an impact on a huge scale. If everyone made those little changes within their own daily habits, we would see a completely different community than what we feel like we have now. And don't discount those little changes and the impacts that those can make, but also look for opportunities to make steps towards climate adaptation in your own life. Instead of focusing on the potential downfalls in the future of the impacts of greenhouse gas emissions, start looking at ways that you can prepare for those future events that we expect to see in Lanark County. Those can be little things, even on a personal level. If you have a garden, look at using, native plant species instead of garden varieties. They have deeper root systems. They're better adapted for our environment. They can absorb carbon and store it in the soil. Or look at creating a rain garden or harvest rain when it comes in. Make sure that your house is prepared in the events of natural disasters or emergencies, and have a plan. And I think when you start to zoom out on the bigger picture and realize that as a whole, as a human culture, we've gone through many cycles in climate. And I would encourage young people, if they feel overwhelmed with what science is saying, right now we hear it every year, this is the hottest year on record, this is the hottest year on record. And it can feel overwhelming, but it's the hottest year on record that we've recorded. And I think for those that are really overwhelmed with that, I would recommend looking at it from an earth sciences perspective, looking back in history to see, even in the last couple hundred years, our climate has changed dramatically and humans have survived. We are adaptable. And I think that's part of this movement right now with climate change and climate action, is we are making the change, and to not get discouraged when we see things that aren't aligning with the overall goals. Know that these conversations are happening at the levels that we want them to be happening. Our local municipalities control 50% of greenhouse gas emissions. It seems small when you look at a small scale and small context, but organizations like Lanark County, we are all starting to look towards what we need to do in the future. And so all hope is not lost, and there are lots of things to be optimistic about. I do believe that we are making substantial changes, even at a large corporate scale. The change, that systematic change, is really slow. It takes a long time. And to not get discouraged because it has become mainstream. And that is not something to bat an eye at. This has become a very complicated but prevalent issue in this day and age. Even every election that we see, those candidates have climate change platforms. So this is becoming a very big topic. And just to give you an example, our Alice Mississippi Rito program, we just got a donation from Coca-Cola to provide nature-based climate solutions on farmlands within Canada. And so these large corporations are starting to recognize their corporate responsibilities, and it is happening. What we're doing right now is building the tools to be able to implement those changes. And now we're getting to a point where an organization like Coca-Cola has a really hard time saying no to providing money to be able to do this kind of work.
Climate anxiety is a real thing, and a lot of people struggle with it, myself included. It's incredibly overwhelming to see the effects of climate change and to feel like there's absolutely nothing that you can do to fix it. And at times it makes you feel very hopeless and frustrated and wondering if everything you do or try to do is for nothing. But it's important to remember that it's not, and the things that you do are helping. And so what's helped me to cope with those emotions is to focus on action. So getting involved in initiatives, surrounding myself with like-minded people, and talking about it with people really, really helps, because I know that by taking action and by talking about it, I'm at least doing something, and at least it's getting a little bit better and not worse.
In learning to stay present in the moment, we can reduce anxiety and help our nervous system feel regulated. So when we're caught in that cycle of worry about the planet, it's easy to start spiraling into the worst case scenarios. But mindfulness can help us focus on what's actually happening right now, which is where we can make the most impact. Psychotherapy is a holistic therapeutic approach that connects our mental health to the health of the earth. So it recognizes that as a species, we're not separate from nature. We're actually a part of it. It's embedded, interconnected. So when we reconnect with the natural world, we can experience a deep sense of grounding, healing, and peace. So you can do this in spending more time in green spaces, walking or meditating outside, gardening, doing any kind of art or movement based therapy or activities outside, or even bringing nature into traditional talk therapy settings. So physically, you can go for a walk during a talk therapy session. So there's actually solid research behind this too, and studies have shown that time spent in nature reduces our stress, anxiety, depression, improves our memory, and increases vitality. And even just looking at pictures of nature has a really calming effect on our brain. So ecotherapy reminds us that the natural world can be kind of like a co-therapist. It can offer us stability, rhythm, and beauty in a time when everything feels really, really chaotic. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, I would encourage you to try a small, simple grounding practice, like a short mindful walk in a quiet outdoor space. Or I'm going to walk through a breath awareness exercise that you can do right now. So you're going to start by sitting in a comfortable position or lying on your back. You're going to release any tension in your body and gently bring your awareness to your breath. We're just observing, we're not changing our breath, we're just noticing it right now. When we're feeling the air move through our nose, fill up our lungs, and noticing our chest and belly rising and falling. We're going to stay with this for a few minutes. And it's a gentle way to calm our nervous system down and come back into the present. So that simple act of focusing on your breath can help break that cycle of anxiety and calm your nervous system down, which brings you back to the present moment. So as a therapist, I'm also here to tell you that you're not alone in how you feel. If climate anxiety is something that you're dealing with, please don't hesitate to reach out for support. Together we can work on ways to cope, to find empowerment in the actions that we can take, and to learn to regulate our feelings that climate change is bringing up for us. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, and I hope that this message resonates with you and that you're feeling more grounded and understood. Take care of yourself and remember that you're not alone in this. Thanks.